life.
Absolutely.
And, my pastor actually, when I was in the mental hospital, my pastor at the time, he came to the hospital. He was there right away. And he came to me and rededicated myself. And so, yeah, I in that moment, like when I made that decision to rededicate myself, like I wanted to get back on track. I always had my family, I grew up in a church, and like that was always a big part of my life. And I feel like I had fallen out of that, and I had fallen out of my relationship with the Lord, and that really was just not me. And everyone knew that wasn't me. Like I had such a passion and joy for life, and so they could see it. I couldn't really see it then, but I knew that there needed to be a change, that something needed to happen. But yeah, having a support system in place is huge. And for my recovery and overall journey through my mental health, having my support system in place was so big for me. And I know a lot of people don't have that, but I was very blessed to have that. And I found a great counselor, actually two, and they really helped me a lot. So I would really encourage listeners to be open-minded and not be embarrassed by seeing a professional, because they are really there to help you. Right. And I mean, that was their calling, and whatever led them into that field, there's a reason for it. And maybe they went through trauma, which is actually two of the counselors that I really had a great relationship with. They had similar trauma that they had, gone through. And I think that's kind of like how God, he led me there to them. And I really think that opening up about trauma is so important. It's a big piece. And I think our world today is a lot more aware of mental health and the importance of it. But yeah, taking care of your mental health is vital. And I can't say it enough. Reach out. Don't be afraid to speak about what you're going through, because you may be surprised by how many others are actually going through that journey as well.
Why do you think, because I agree with what you're saying. I think there are a lot of people out there who gave this like negative connotation about therapy and about seeing a counselor. I think there is like the oh, I'm broken or something's wrong, like very wrong mentality with it. With like, if you're going there, you're going there for a problem. Why do you think that is? Like, I kind of see it as a resource to improve, going and being able to talk to somebody, whether they're a religious counselor or not, or, pastor or not, just somebody who's there to ask really good questions. I think, I think they can use their expertise, whether that's, like you said, their personal expertise where they've been through maybe a situation, or just their clinical expertise of using that to help us reflect and kind of grow through that. So I think I'm agreeing with you. I think it's a key. But why do you think there's so much negative, like negative connotation out there for therapy?
I think some of it is because they're embarrassed because of maybe they just don't want to open up and talk about what they're going through because it is embarrassing. They're ashamed. They feel a lot of pressure, a lot of guilt. But also, I think that you build a relationship with the person that you're sitting across from. Right. And that's scary. That's really scary, especially when you have been through trauma, and trusting and allowing that person to kind of read your mind, and you talk about some really hard and deep things. And I think that scares a lot of people away. And that was a big part, like for me, that I had to trust the person sitting across from me. Right. And that took time to build that relationship and that trust. And if you have someone that you feel a connection with, because that's really big, I think, connection with the person that you're talking to and you're trusting your time with, that you have that connection and you can feel safe and that you're able to achieve what you want to get out of counseling, first of all. I mean, you're there for a reason, and you do want to see the growth. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you do want to see. So, yeah, I think that's a big thing that I see with counseling, and stepping out there to achieve that help.
Do you think people give it enough time? Because like you said, basically what you're saying, right? Like in order to build that trust and to see some of this improvement, I think we're a culture where we got to have instant results. So how long would you think someone could be in counseling to where the guard is down, and then because I think you had to let the guard down, but then you have to dig through all the gunk that we have in our lives to even get to the improvement. So how long do you think someone should do therapy to maybe even see some results?
I think it really depends on the person and what you are wanting, what you're, what led you there. But for me, I would say I went through counseling for probably like 3 years. 3 years. Maybe a little bit longer. I'm not sure. But I think it depends on what you're going for. And the one lady that I ended my sessions with, we reached a point where there wasn't anything else that we needed to work on.
Right.
And we had kind of met our goals, and we had talked through some really, really heavy stuff. And, she felt good about it. I felt good about it. So I would really say it just depends on the person and like what you are, what led you there, first of all. But then, give it time, give yourself time, to just work through those things. And then maybe things will come up as you talk to your person that you didn't know that you had inside of you.
Right.
Things that kind of just, got stirred up.
Right.
So that's another thing. But
how did it feel at the end of those 3 years? So you built that relationship with that person, and then at 3 years they're like, hey, you've graduated, right? You've got it. So how did that feel?
Amazing. It felt good. I felt like I gained so much knowledge and so much wisdom, and really just how important mental health is in all parts of life.
Right.
Whether you are a young teenager or you are going into college or you're getting married, having kids, whatever that looks like for you, I think that it's just so important.
So what are some practices? You mentioned teenagers. So what are some practices, some, people either starting their transformation journey, maybe they're young kids, or, maybe they're starting to get into life, right? Whatever stage in life they're at. What are some practices that you would recommend just from your experience to either help you get out of the valley, help you kind of get through the storm, or even just spark the change, right? Spark that transformation. So what are some practices that you would recommend that maybe you're doing now?
I would really say get into whether you're involved in your church. That's a big part for me. I had a really great youth pastor. That was phenomenal. And he was full of life, full of joy, and he really poured into the youth in the church that I go to and that I was going to. That really just I don't know, it gave us just a lot of pieces to take with us through our years. And I really still use them today. But yeah, I think getting involved with, if you're involved in your church, get involved with your youth group, reach out, and you would really be surprised at how much it's beneficial for young kids and teenagers because it's hard being a teenager.
Yeah.
You go through a lot of emotions. There's a lot of just weight of the world on your shoulders and expectations that is there that, reaching out is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of gone over your past. We've kind of gone over, some of your current practices of what you do to stay out of the valley, get through the storm, right? And so really, where do you see God taking you from today moving forward? What do you see? Where do you see God leading you and changing you right now?
Yeah. So right now I work for the Grant County Rescue Mission, like I mentioned earlier. I really feel that He led me there for a reason. And I always knew that I wanted to help others, but I didn't know what that would look like. I'm so grateful that He showed me the human service field at Ivy Tech. I started out at Ivy Tech when I got married at 19. I was going to college, but I fell off. It was just not something that I was passionate. I was, super in love at the time and invested in my relationship. But I'm so glad that after some of the things happened in my life, I did get back to finishing my degree.
Right. How did that feel, by the way? not to interrupt, but how did that feel to finally like cross over? Like, hey, I got my degree, because you're also, just for listeners who don't know, you're also working like 40 to 50 hours a week, married, had a family, and you know, when you by the time you finished, you were doing all of that and school to finish up, right?
Yes.
So how did it feel to graduate?
It felt amazing. It really did. And you know, when I first started, I had struggled so much with, what am I going to do? What is my purpose?
Right.
And what is that going to look like? But I really think that going through some of the hard mistakes that I made in my life really led me to this point, really led me to choosing the human services field at Ivy Tech. And it led me to the Grant County Rescue Mission. It led me to doing my internship at Open Heart Women's Shelter, which then, you know, led me even further into where I'm at today with the rescue mission. And I really think that he just kind of set all of that up. And I'm so thankful. And
then also kind of just also set you up even further, because that's how you met Carmen.
Yes, that's how I met Carmen.
So really kind of like talk about seeing God work at, you know, if you look back and see how God was working and taking your past and shaping you, right? Also then setting you up with your family too by going through school and going through all of that. So, sorry, so how's God looking to lead and change you?
Yeah, and I do feel that, I guess he led me there for a reason, and I do think that he uses me every day, and it's in the little things, it's in the big things. But I get to talk to the public, the community, and I get to relate to them, and I get to talk about Jesus and the transformation, like I said, that he has done in my life. And I think it's kind of setting me up for really what I want to do.
Right.
And that is hopefully going to be something along the lines of working with women who have been in similar situations with trauma. And who knows, maybe even this podcast could be part of that as well.
I would like to see that, you know, and I kind of, by the time people listen to this, they've already going to see like a couple Instagram posts about this, but I kind of already shouted you out that you're going to help me co-pilot this thing. And, you know, and yeah, I think that would be the ultimate goal of this podcast, is to get other people on here who've been transformed. You know, everyone's going to have a different kind of past. Everyone's going to, you know, going to have a different transformation story, but that would be the ultimate even dream for me too, is to kind of go through this journey with you and see how God's working in other people's lives, and you know, how we can maybe use this podcast as a medium to help other people change. And that would be cool. Absolutely. I'm absolutely right there with you. So what are some other ways you think God could use you, whether this with the podcast or helping women? What are some other ways that you think either God is working in the community or God can use you to help other people?
Yeah, I think that I really do feel like the things that I've gone through in my life is going to be like my mission statement, you know, for the Lord, and getting out there. And, you know, I feel like it could be working in maybe a mental health hospital or something, because that's where I was for a couple weeks. But I really don't know, you know, what that's going to look like. But I do see him using me and building me. Like right now, this is a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I do think that it is good for me, because it does help me reflect, and it does get me to thinking like, wow, you know, I do have a pretty big testimony, and God is going to use me for that. Like, he chooses the unlikely, and so, you know,
absolutely.
Sometimes I feel pretty unlikely, but I do think that, you know.
I actually think I completely relate there. I never really felt like my testimony, always felt like it was kind of vanilla, you know, like, oh, you know, I grew up in a Christian home, and, you know, I didn't really have this journey at all. But I think Satan really does a really good job at making us feel low and keeping us in that low state, because if we feel low and we don't know the story that we have, and we don't see where God is transformed and used us, I think that's where, you know, like, okay, well, I don't have a story, I'm just not going to say anything. But in all reality, like, we actually have a transformation story. We do have this story where God has taken us out and transformed and changed us. So absolutely. I mean, we just got to, I think, keep that and also help other people see that, like, hey, if you went through addiction, if you went through that, you got a story, and you could actually use that story to help other people out. And yeah,